Hi everybody and welcome to the One Wildlife podcast with me, Abbie Barnes. This is simply a show about life, and as such there are no boundaries to where our conversations can take us. Along the way, we simply aim to inspire, empower, educate and uplift, exploring how we can all live our best lives every single day. Before we get started, I want to mention that this podcast is hosted by Spend More Time in the Wild, which I founded in 2016 to help individuals get outside for the benefit of mental and physical health. Over the last few years, the project has grown into a worldwide community of passionate and courageous individuals working together to enjoy the beauty of our wild spaces and protect them for generations to come. You can find out more about both the podcast and Wild by visiting www.spendmoretimeinthewild.co.uk. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening, or head on to YouTube to watch the full episode. Andrew Miller likes to be busy. At the age of 20, he joined the military, where, despite struggling academically at a young age, he travelled the world and learnt that he has an outstanding IQ of 143. Anything over 116 is considered to be above average. Whilst in the army, he worked as a special telecommunications operator in signals intelligence and also trained in photography and communications, though not in the civilian way that we're so familiar with. Perhaps most significantly, though, Andrew experienced the power of compassionate communication that adapts and empowers to meet the learning needs of all, a skill he has been cultivating ever since. After 12 years of service, Andrew left the army and found work in satellite communications and training and coaching industries. It was a few years later, though, that he took the leap to begin a new venture in the world of self-employment, beginning with management consulting for large organizations across Europe and Asia, and later establishing a flourishing business in wedding photography. He volunteers as a mentor for Business Wales, and most recently has begun offering hiking and camping experiences to help individuals gain clarity over life and corporate situations. Andrew is most certainly one of the most adaptable, resilient, and generous people I know, with service to others being at the heart of almost everything he does. Andrew, welcome to the One Wildlife podcast.
I need to get my tissues after reading that.
A bit emotional.
Yeah, that was really sweet. Yeah.
Oh, well, it's so good to have you here.
That sort of encapsulated the conversation that we had beautifully. That's a really well-written piece. Thank you.
Oh, well, this is a pleasure, and I'm so pumped you're here because, we've been, how long have we been connected now? Probably 6 months, would you say?
6-7 months, I think.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
I came. So when I was sort of, you mentioned about doing the outdoor stuff. When I was thinking about taking my coaching that I've been doing for Business Wales and corporate stuff outdoors with regard to safe COVID, basically COVID safe is much safer outdoors, I did a whole load of research and I came across your YouTube channel, Wild, etc. And I think that's when I first sort of, I like what you do. I like the way that you do it. And I signed up to your Patreon. And then 6 months later we're having a conversation.
That's it. It's so cool, isn't it, how the world brings people together?
Absolutely.
But as I say, I'm so pumped you're here, and there's so many angles that I'd like to go down today, so many things I'd like to dissect. But first of all, how are you coping with the COVID situation at the moment? Because we're still here in lockdown in the UK, and I'm just wondering how you're faring the weather.
For your international listeners, the UK is actually split up into different devolved countries, so we all have slightly different lockdown laws. You're in England, and I think you were allowed to drive somewhere to exercise. I'm in Wales, and I can't. So any exercise I take has to be from the front door and finish at the front door, which I'm really, really lucky where I live. I've got 4 miles, 4.5, 5 square miles of national forest on my doorstep. And I can do 15 to 20 miles easily with the 2 dogs I have without a problem. I'm conscious that many people who live in South Wales, where I live, which is the highly populated area, basically don't have something like that. And that sort of worries me from a long-term mental health point of view. Being locked down is great. It keeps the pandemic at reasonable levels, but we're just building up mental health issues. People like to be outdoors. We are an outdoor species, essentially. You know, so I'm good. I worry about the people I coach and my friends quite a lot because they miss going out and walking.
Yeah,
So
it's so hard, isn't it? And it's as you say, it's we need that outdoor access for so many levels, but also that connection with others, and that's the two sort of fundamentals we need to
yeah,
thrive as a species have been taken away at the moment.
yeah,
But
absolutely. You know, single mums,
mm,
homeschooling, no emotional contact, no physical contact, can't go outside. You know, they are suffering.
yeah, yeah,
Hopefully not for very long. So
that's it.
yeah,
Yeah. We'll just have to see how it unfolds. But you know, it's super exciting in one way because we, you and I and others have the opportunity to sort of show up for people, you know, who perhaps can't get outside in the same way. And I hope conversations like this can be insightful and perhaps inspirational and empowering. And I know that empowerment is something you're very passionate about. But let's jump into growing up. I wanna steer back to your childhood. Did you grow up in Wales?
no, I was born in Watford
Okay.
in the southeast,
Hmm.
northeast, yeah, southeast. Moved up to the northeast where my family originally comes from at the age of 11 months. So I was brought up in North Yorkshire. So I've always thought myself as I'm a Yorkshire guy rather than anything else. Um, and I was basically brought up in a town in a highly industrialized area in the northeast.
Mm.
Um, I think the local outdoor access was the local parks, that kind of thing. But we've had shipbuilding, heavy steel industries, ICI chemical works, heavy industries on my doorstep all
Mm.
the time, which is very much like South Wales now. So I don't think I've only moved geographically, I've not moved environmentally almost. The North Yorkshire moors were on my doorstep. So before I did join the army, got the car out onto the moors, and I loved being outdoors. I loved that outdoor space. Um, Joined the army.
What did it do for you? Sorry, being outside, like, what did it represent?
Freedom.
Yeah.
I think if you live in an inner city area or an urban area,
Mm.
you've got the buildings, and they are very, very, they're closely tight. If anybody's ever walked around London or New York or San Francisco, any of the the big conurbations, you barely see daylight. All you see is grey tower blocks.
Mm.
And going outdoors, it's sort of, you just look around and there is nothing there. That
Yeah,
sense of complete freedom is just, to me, mind blowing.
it is.
I could easily sit on the top of an exposed hill with a book, and I'd be happy, regardless of what the weather is.
That's it.
So
Oh,
yeah,
howling gale. Oh, can't
yeah,
quite
it
read
doesn't
the
matter
pages.
if you've got the right kit, you're fine.
That's it. I thought that would come out at some point. So I remember I mean, we've spoken obviously a fair amount in the last, well, since we've got to know each other. And I mentioned in the introduction that you used the phrase that you struggled academically at a young age. And I wondered if you could sort of talk the listeners through your education as you grew up and what that looked like.
Yeah, I missed a year of education by basically my mother went away to Tenerife. My Spanish is good enough to get by and order food, drinks, that kind of thing, but not good enough to get into a Spanish speaking school. English speaking schools were full. So I sort of missed a year out, as it were.
Yeah.
Got back into education, and and this is not a blame on the UK education system or any education system back when I was a child. Now I'm 53 this year, just to give people an idea. It was designed for people who fit middle of the road, normal, average, everyday people, then streamed into more intelligent, the more academically gifted. If you weren't academically gifted, basically you weren't forgotten about, but you were just put down a little bit more.
Mm.
Um, and I can remember thinking I wanted to do physics. I've always been interested in science. And I can remember physically almost being dragged out of a physics. This is going to be for the older generation, GCE
Yeah.
course, because I was told you're not good enough. You're going into the CSE course.
Okay.
And then, a couple of years later, I ended up going through the army, getting qualifications in a whole load of areas, physics being one of them.
Mm.
I can't blame the schools for what they did. Things like dyspraxia, dyscalculia, dyslexia, ADHD were known about, but they weren't widely known about. So many teachers just had no idea. It was just, you're just not good enough.
Yeah.
Or you are a disruptive child, rather than thinking, is there something behind that we can possibly help with, that happens now in modern education? And I didn't know any better, so I was, fine, I'm just not bright.
Yeah. But for example, you mentioned, you enjoyed physics. Did that feel disheartening at any point for you?
Absolutely, because my friendship group were all in the top stream.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of in the bottom stream, and it was like, they never mentioned anything. But it was always, am I good enough to be friends with them as a child? It's that sort of childish emotional process that you go through.
Yeah, questioning.
Yeah, and you sort of question yourself, it didn't worry me per se, because my friends were my friends. We just got on. They really couldn't give a hoot that I was in the different stream. We just got on with being friends. But it worried me that people might think that I'm not intelligent enough. What am I going to do? I'm not going to get a better job when I grow older. All of that, as kids do, when they start going, 13, 14, 15, 16 years. So yeah, it's a big thing for a child to be told you are not good enough.
It is, and I, it's sort of very relevant at the moment, I feel, as well. What with COVID, so many children are thrown into unknowns and having to try and learn from home, and everything is screen based, and that feeling of not being good enough is everywhere.
It's a little bit worrying that for whatever reason, the schools, the teachers, the heads are getting in touch with the parents and your child's not doing enough online, your child's not doing enough of this, which is almost telling the parent the child isn't good enough. Whereas, can we just have a conversation about what the parent is going through, the mental anguish, the mental issues, the mental health issues that the parent is going through, and then perhaps dealing with the behavioural issues that the child might be going through because of not seeing their friends, because of not being able to go outside. So it's very, very hard to say who's right and who's wrong, but this is something we need to think about as a society, the wider impact of mental health upon lockdown, upon homeschooling, and even when we're out of lockdown, the impact on home working and working at home on mental health issues. Because businesses have been proven that you can work from home, but do we actually want people to do that because of their mental health issues? That's my HR background coming in.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's so much to it, but I'm interested in Andrew. So as you are growing up and, finding you as you're struggling within the education field, did you have any sort of escapism? Did the outdoors represent anything there? Did you consciously go outside and adventure?
I'm of the generation where basically your mother kicked you out when it was light on a Saturday morning and told you had to be in when it was dark. So 8 o'clock, I'm outside playing with my friends, and I came back when it was dark at 9 o'clock, and she didn't care less that she didn't hear from me for 12 hours. There was no mobile phones. Telephone boxes were a rarity. My house, my estate, as it were, was built on an old RAF station, RAF Thornaby, and there were still bunkers that were there. And, as a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid who's always been interested in the military, that was an ideal playground. And I ended up, playing there a lot. You get on the bike, you go out, and again, your parents didn't really have any idea where you were. It was just a safer environment, I think.
Very much a lot of space for the imagination.
But then computers hit, and I think I became a bit of a nerd.
Well, it happens. So you got through school, and you were, correct me if I'm wrong, you were 20 when you joined the army.
Yes,
why? What about the army appealed to you, and how come you decided to join?
I always wanted to join the military. The army. Always wanted to join the army. My mum would never sign the papers when I was younger, so I could join as a boy soldier. Remember, my age group is when the Troubles in Northern Ireland were splashed across the newspapers, any kind of media channel all the time, with civilians being killed, soldiers being killed, Republicans and nationalists being killed, etc. So it was a very violent time for somebody to want to join the military, because you were going to go to Northern Ireland. That was, there was no question about you would be sent. And quite rightly, my mother was terrified of that. So I'm not signing the papers, just go away, get a job, whatever. I left school, went back to college to get the qualifications, or get the O levels, as they were called. I came out with a degree in computer science as well. Hence, that was the nerdy, geeky thing. It actually paid off.
Very good.
Yeah. And I joined the civil service. And whilst I was in the civil service, I came across a lady who was in the Territorial Army, or the Reserves as they are known now, in the Royal Signals. And we just got talking about my love. I've always wanted to join the army. And I don't know whether she got a bonus for bringing people in. But I'm joining. I loved the idea that I could be a civilian and be a soldier at the same time and get the best of both worlds. And you got paid as well. You got paid to play outdoors. It was amazing. And they give you big guns and tanks and stuff to play with as well. So I was just like a child again.
Is that what really excited you? Is that sort of adventure element?
And absolutely. And I think that's driven all of my life, is doing something different. Being the best person that I can be, but always wanting to do something different. And you said in the introduction, I always want to be busy. That goes along with that. Yes, it was a full-time job in the civil service. Excuse me. I worked in the DHSS, or the DHS, I think it's called now, basically telling people you can't have a gyro check and then ducking as they threw things at me. So going through basic training, absolutely dead easy being shouted at. But that sense of adventure, of wanting to do something on a weekend as well, not just stay at home, watch the telly, go out on the beers with the lads or whatever. I needed that extra escape, and that gave me the sense of somebody will pay me to basically go outdoors and live outside. And it was like, ooh, yeah.
You strike me as somebody who has a lot of energy. Has that always been the case?
Yes. And hence that sort of conversation earlier about ADHD, I don't think I've got it. I just think I've got a lot of energy. I like to be busy. I have a massively extroverted personality. That I can, now that I'm older, I've learned to be able to tone that down for people. Back then, no. At school, I was fairly quiet. And then when I was let out of school, it was almost as if I can be me, the real me, which was, again, another fantastic emotional release. I didn't need to worry about anybody else and what they thought. I went to college and this is the real Andrew. I'm a loud-mouthed. I will, do the hair, the long hair, the makeup, 80s child kind of thing.
So why at college did that transition happen? Because I think, right there, we're talking essentially about a sense of identity and self-worth. And you, it seems like at quite a young age, were already doing a bit of a journey with that.
Yes. Strong Roman Catholic upbringing. And I've loved, and I'm still a strong Roman Catholic now. And that gives me a sense of spiritualness and self-identity. However, there was a certain, in my perception, there's a certain expectation that this is what will happen. All of my friends, or 90% of my friends, even not more, went to the Catholic sixth form college. So they just basically stayed in that same friendship group. I made a conscious decision to go to a non-religious college. I didn't have, you're a Roman Catholic, this is what you have to do. I didn't have my friends around me that expected me to be Andrew. It was, I'm going somewhere else, I can be somebody new, and that new was just what I'd always wanted to be, which is a loudmouthed extrovert with bags of energy.
That's very interesting for me, because I mean, I'm curious whether it's faith or religion or whatever term you'd prefer to use. Has that steered you much in your life, and certainly in terms of your career at all?
I think you're right in not trying to put a label on whether it's spiritual, religious, faith. I think it's the inner driver that we all have that gives you your sense of moral compass, your sense of ethics, your drive to want to be somebody and how you want to live. And yes, I've been an absolute bastard, pardon the French, you might bleep that out. But as you get older, it's, I want to be nice, I want to help people. And that goes back into that sense of moral compass that I have, that helping people is a big part of my life and has been since I basically joined the army. And training other people and seeing them develop as well. So 35 years almost out of my 53 has had a sense of helping other people somewhere along the line. That Catholic background, I think, helped immensely by giving me a really good foundation on being nice.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not you want to think about Catholics or Christians or Judaism or Islam, all three of those major Abrahamic religions basically say the same. Be the nicest person you can be. And if you look outside to the Eastern religions, Buddhism, Zen, they do exactly the same thing. That core message is just be nice.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think that's a really good takeaway for listeners, actually, is just step one. It's that, okay, I want to take some steps here in terms of personal development. It's like, okay, I'll be nice to myself and I'll be nice to others. You can't really go wrong there, can you?
yeah, and I think I'm the extrovert in me is pointing wildly at Abbie at the minute, saying that's absolutely it. You have to look at yourself for your self journey, to figure out where you are, where you want to go before you can start helping other people. Know yourself really, really well and come to terms with the fact that you might not be the perfect person. You might have things that you've done, said in your past that you can't do anything about except try to overcome those by being better in the future and learning from that.
It's that learner's mindset.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You're constantly learning no matter what age group you are. And that's part of the reason I enjoy working with people, coaching, mentoring, and helping people think about different things. But it starts from you. If I can fix your issues, you will be a better business person.
That's it. Well, I think it's amazing, and I think there's a lot to take away there. I'm curious then, I would like to jump into the army now. So I think for a lot of people, the army has a lot of mystery surrounding it, and I would like to be walked through, if at all possible, the joining up process and what sort of things had to be covered in basic training.
Right. Joining up was basically go down to your local careers office, and that was my introduction to psychometric assessments. So they sort of wanted an O-level or a CSE as a minimum educational level, but the psychometric assessments gave the military a much better understanding of your educational qualities, your numerical and verbal reasoning, your spatial awareness, all a huge amount of things. And that ticked my boxes when I look back then, 32, 35 years later, that I'm not bothered what somebody's educational level is. I can help them in a different way to figure that out. So I did all of that, and I was given two options if I wanted to join the army. I could be a postman, or I could join the army has everything. So be a postman.
I didn't realize they had postmen.
Well, somebody has to deliver the mail.
Fair
Royal
point.
Mail are not going. Yeah, they're not going. The Royal Mail are not going to drive a van onto a battlefield, Abbie.
That is a very fair point.
The Royal Engineers, etc., did the post duties back then. Or the recruiting sergeant said, you can be a telecommunications operator, open brackets, special close brackets. And my face just went, I have no idea. So tell me about that. Sounds really interesting. So I can't say, I don't know anything about it. All it says is your skill set matches that.
Okay.
And because you're colourblind, and I'm a strange colourblind wedding photographer, if you want to join the army, you're doing this Royal Signals job. Otherwise, you can get out and find somewhere else. So okay then. He said, the only thing I can tell you about it, you're going to learn Morse code.
Okay.
And that was it. It was just completely walking in blind to a job he couldn't tell me about. I couldn't find anything about it because there was no online stuff. Back then. There was no books that you could pick up at the library. It was a complete leap of faith into, I just want to join the army. And if the army is saying I'm good enough to do this job, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Went to basic training at Catterick Garrison, which is really close to me. And I can't remember how long. I think it was either 8 or 10 weeks back then when I did it. And actually, I left less fit because, which is really strange. I was fitter when I joined than when I left because the amount of fitness I'd been doing in the Territorial Army and the amount of fitness that was required as a signals soldier going through basic training. But I loved it. I loved the outdoors. It was just, give me the log, let's run.
Yeah, that's it. One thing you haven't mentioned though is, and I have no doubt that it was very important to you, is that sense of camaraderie, the connection you have with the people you're working with. I can imagine for you as a people person, that was also a very good thing.
Absolutely. So when I was in my basic training, you are split into several troops, as it were, so smaller units, and all of and I'm going to use the phrase intelligent for want of a better word, all of the more intelligent trades were put into one troop. The non-intelligent, or the less intelligent, were put into different troops. And there's friendly banter amongst all military about trade groups, etc. So you can all take the mickey out of each other. And even after being out 20 years, we still do. Until the civvies pick on us, and then everybody just, right, we're one force. So all of the intelligent guys were in one troop, etc., etc. And we absolutely bombed all of the written tests that we had to do. We came the bottoms. All of the physical stuff that we weren't expected, we just cruised. So completely flipped. And I'm looking back and I'm thinking, yeah, we didn't do any of the revision because we didn't need to. We knew we'd pass because it was a pass or a fail. You didn't need a percentage. You just pass or fail. So what's the point in revising?
That's it.
Wing it. But give us the log, give us the stretcher, we'll give us the webbing, we'll just do all of the physical stuff. But that sense of coming together really early on, I've still got friends now who I knew in basic training 30 odd years ago. That's how close that friendship is. And it's traveled all the way through the military. The experiences that I've had with people in Northern Ireland, in Bosnia, etc., they're still there, they're still with me. I'm still friends with them, and we can still tell some of the more safer stories, as it were. What goes on tour stays on tour. But you can just pick up a conversation that you had 25 years ago and it'll be fine. And I love that sense of camaraderie, being able to just, I spent 6 months driving a Land Rover in Bosnia being shot at. Yeah, but it was easy. we just used masking tape to plug the holes in the Land Rover.
Each to their own.
But yes. And I think that's, when you're talking about why do people join the army, I think you join for a sense of adventure. You can join for the jobs, that kind of thing. But that's all you see it as. It is a job.
Yeah.
You don't see the other stuff as being anything else. You know that when I joined, I was going to go to Northern Ireland. And I joined in 1989. And in 1988, it was the time when the two Royal Signals corporals were dragged out of the car in Belfast and executed, which scared my mother even more. But that was sort of, you accepted that's what may happen. That was part of the job. It's just like, if I'm going to work in a corporate, I'm going to get a car, a laptop, a phone, and I'm going to sit in an office for 9 hours a day. It was just part of the job. It just doesn't make it any different.
Yeah.
It's a different mindset for some people to understand. I can totally understand. I can totally get that.
Yeah. Was there anything about the army that didn't sit right with you?
Not when I first started. It became apparent later on and it wasn't the British Army per se, it was the politics that started creeping in to some of the places that we were being sent or not sent, more importantly. So things like the genocide in Rwanda, the United Nations could have stepped in to do something, and instead we didn't.
Yeah.
When I say we, I mean the rest of the world, and 1 million people died in 100 days, horrifically. That could have been prevented. We couldn't have prevented deaths, but we could have certainly reduced it. And that was, I think, a very political decision.
Yeah.
And that sort of twists the thinking a little bit as to, why am I here? How does that fit with my moral compass? Do I agree with that? And that was sort of started to tick away in the back of my head, that I absolutely love what I do. Is it what I want to continue to do for the rest of my life, the way that the military is going? So we invaded Iraq to kick the Iraqis out of Kuwait, etc. But we wouldn't help an African country, kind of thing. So it's the huge global political mix going on, that my trade was involved in being aware of a global political mix. So you start to think wider, more strategically, rather than just very insular, that many people just, I live in the UK, that's all I'm bothered about.
No, I can see the kind of inner conversation and conflicts that could potentially lead to as well. But we won't quite get to you moving on from the army just yet. I'm very interested in attributes. And during the time that I've known you, I mean, I mentioned again in the introduction that you come across very resilient. And even the way you talk, you have a very positive and constructive and, again, empowering way of speaking, it generally follows that line. It's not self-degradating. It's not surrendering. You almost show up for everything, and even in the way that you talk, you're very resilient. And I wondered, do you feel like these attributes, your values, were you aware of them before joining the army, or do you feel like it's the army and the adversity and the challenge and the ups and the downs that you faced there that sort of brought these out in you?
Yes.
Okay.
Um,
Were you aware of that?
No, you nailed it. Absolutely. I think the military, so the wider military, is very good at training and developing people. It's very good at finding that little spark that everybody, and I mean everybody, has, and fanning it,
Yep.
and then allowing the individual to grow. And the military is very good at giving people different opportunities to allow them to grow. If you want to take their opportunity, the military will help you. And the army obviously saw that spark. They fanned the flames. They gave me the opportunity to do so many different things. And one of the endearing memories I have of my grandfather is he dropped me off at Catterick Barracks on the day that I joined the army. And he was in the military as well, in the army. I think he was in the Royal Durham Light Infantry, something like that. And he said, just say yes to everything.
Okay.
Everybody says never volunteer. He flipped it and said, say yes to everything. And that's the best piece of advice that I can remember from my granddad, who's passed. So anytime somebody came up and says, can I have a volunteer? My hand was up at the V. I'll do it. Anything. And even that meant, yeah, you're going to do some extra guard duties, or we need somebody to do whatever. But it meant that I spent 7 months with the Royal Marines sailing around Southeast Asia, and being paid for that. It meant that I had time to work with different units by volunteering and learning different skill sets along the way. Not just, I'm just going to do this little job, I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And that gives that sense of mental resilience. So the army's there, the military are there, the Navy, the RAF, the Marines, the Para, whatever. If you want to do it, there's opportunity, but you have to want to do it. And that's the nub. You have to want to do it. The you is you. And I'm pointing at myself for the cameras there. I wanted to do it. Some people don't have that much mental resilience, perhaps, and they say, well, actually, that's not for me just now.
Yeah.
You want to carry that log up the hill and beat the other team. You want that particular coloured beret. And to do that, you have to want it enough to put yourself through emotional and physical pain to get there. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost a metaphor for life in one way. Not everybody wants to join the army, but everybody faces their things that, the challenges and the dreams and the goals. And again, it's that willingness, it's that desire. Like, skills can be learned, attributes are almost inherent there within us. And yes, we can cultivate and nourish them, but we all can flourish in different situations based upon those core attributes that we have.
I think you've sort of picked up on a nub of leadership development and the two sides of nature or nurture.
Yeah.
Are people born leaders, or does everybody have the spark in them? And you might think that, the British military has all of the military colleges, Sandhurst, etc. I'm a nurture, absolutely. Find the spark, fan the flames, that person, and develop that person, and be prepared as a leader yourself to develop people above you and push them to get above you.
Yeah.
It's knowing your own limits. And if you know somebody that can go higher than yourself, don't hold them back. Give them a kick up the backside, give them a step up, or whatever phrase you want to use, push them to their true limits. Yeah. And that, to me, is part of knowing yourself and being comfortable where you are with whatever level you find yourself at, and thinking there's always going to be somebody that's a little bit better and a little bit worse.
Yeah.
Push the ones that are better, pull the ones that are a little bit need more development.
I like that. Push the ones that are better, pull the ones that need development. That's very cool. I'm definitely going to take that away from this conversation.
Yeah, I'm going to copyright that. and I think that's an essence of what I like to do. I've got photography friends who are fantastic photographers. I need to push them. I've got photography friends who are fantastic photographers. They need a little bit more pulling to get to their potential.
Yeah.
I need to fan the flames more for them.
It's very funny that we're talking about this, actually, because it's been something that's been on my mind the last couple of days. And I feel like it's a very British thing to cheer people on. Like, we do that publicly. But then inside, there's the insecurity that you're going to be left behind. And the reason why it's been on my mind is because I've sort of felt something very similar. Like, I'm very passionate about encouraging and educating and uplifting others. And then I just get scared that they're going to soar above me and I'm just going to be left scrambling around in the dirt. But that's the point. It's not just the push, it's not just the pull, it's the peace in where you are. And peace doesn't mean you don't strive for more, you don't commit, you're not consistent. Like, it means all of that. But it's a very rounded view. It's others and ourselves. Yeah.
And it starts when we first started the conversation about knowing yourself.
Yes.
Once you're happy with yourself, and there's always going to be a few little rough edges around people, no matter how old you are and how much self-development you've done. There's always a few.
Yeah.
But be comfortable with those. My spelling and grammar is atrocious. Complete waste of time sending me on another course if I join a corporate. It's not going to get any better. So I find somebody in a team that can check that important document.
Yeah.
Or more importantly, I subscribe currently to Grammarly online that automatically does all of that for me. Because that's one of my weaknesses.
Yeah.
And I've just accepted that I'm not going to be that good because that's an academic thing. Give me a screwdriver, give me something to build, and I'm out. I'm there. Yeah. But I get that's what I'm like. Many people haven't quite reached that level. And many people don't want to know themselves because they're maybe a little bit too afraid to admit that they're not as good as they think they want to be because of that aspirations, that constant push to be the best, be yourself. And I think in the UK, we batter our leaders a lot more than we should because they're the ones that have had the self-resilience to put themselves in positions of leadership and get voted into politics, whatever. And sometimes they're doing the best job they can be. They have no idea what's going on. Yeah. But they're the ones that get the blame. Hold them to account for sensible issues that are in their control.
Yeah. Interesting thoughts. Okay. Is it standard in the army to have an IQ test? And how did you feel getting a result of 143?
No, it's not standard. I did it with a few of my friends. And it was just one of those. I did role-playing games, a bit like Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing, with a very small group of my friends who I went through basic training with, and we just sort of having a bit of a banter, and we all, let's do it, it'll be a bit of fun. And I was absolutely blown away. It was like, that can't be right. I'm the guy that has 2 CSEs kind of thing from school. It's just not right.
Yeah.
But it didn't change who I am. It's just, if you want to talk about intelligence, that's what mine was. Yeah. It's probably different now because as you get older, it's normed differently. But that's who I am. So what? I'm still the same guy. I still can't drink more than 3 pints of Guinness on a night out.
Yeah.
Even I've never been able. Nothing changed. It just, so what?
Yeah. Fair point. I think it could have that for some people perhaps finding that you have that intelligence could be a marker for a boosted ego. And again, it really speaks to who you are as a person, that it didn't push you into any arrogance. It was just like, okay, cool, let's go back to the board game.
Well, and that's basically all it was. It was like you just roll a couple of dice. Oh, well, you got 143, fine. You got 128. Yeah. So what?
Yeah.
It can't change who you are unless you want it to change, unless you force that change by growing a couple of inches taller and bragging that I've got an IQ 143. Well, so what? But you've got no common sense.
Get the t-shirt.
And the units that I worked with and the people that I worked with were all super intelligent people. They were all way above average intelligence anyway. Yeah. They had to be, and that was part of the initial psychometrics that we did. So it was quite normal to work with highly intelligent people. It just accepted, and I loved that who cares what your IQ is? You've got a job, we're going to do it. So what?
True. Very true.
I've got friends who have got IQs who are much higher than mine, but you never know because they're exactly the same. So what?
I'm sure there's limits around what you can talk about, but is there any way you could dissect to some degree a standard day in your role in the army?
So when I first got to Germany, my role was to sit in a very nice air-conditioned building and listen to funny signals on a radio.
And interpret those, I presume.
Listen to Morse code, basically.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that was it. I think the best phrase that I can think of is, this is going to be a standard phrase. I was tasked with the interception, collection, and analysis of communication systems deemed hostile to the interests of the United Kingdom.
Wonderful.
Which says a lot, but doesn't say a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what is a communication system? Who's hostile to the interests of the UK? You can break that down. They're the details that we can't really talk about, but that's essentially, so that would cover things like potential Morse code from an enemy force. It could be listening into enemy voice communications, such as some of my compatriots have done to a very good degree in Afghanistan on the open ICOM radios. It could be intercepting radar emissions so that we can figure out all of that kind of thing. It could be jamming radar. It could be direction finding of enemy communication so that we can terminate them, get rid of them by sending other bombs, whatever in. So that it's a huge area to do that. And I had the chance to work in lots of different fields because of that. So you can start in one signals intelligence field, you can go into an electronic intelligence field, you can potentially go into a human intelligence field, you can go from being an air-conditioned office way behind the front line to being on the front line and potentially ahead of the front line. So it encompassed this huge area, but 30 odd years ago, the sergeant just said, "Yeah, you can do this," and I had no idea what that is. That was the huge door that opened for me.
That's it.
Another time, I'm speaking about a situation in Bosnia. We were, myself, 3 other guys, 2 Land Rovers, go away and just do part of that signals intelligence job. What was happening? Where could that was it. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Sometimes we had to be a little bit sneaky about the equipment that we used. Basically lie if anybody was asked because of the sensitive nature.
Yeah.
So that was it. It was just a job to us. It didn't do anything else. I know it sounds very secretive and sexy to other people, but to me, it's just a job.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, and it's nice to sort of just hear that inside information or not, just a little bit, and be able to sort of draw a bit of a picture.
The time I spent with the Royal Marines, I was attached to the Royal Navy, the Royal Marines, and part of my role was to take photos of the bases that we were, the ports that we went on. So you just pretend to be a tourist taking photos with the rest of your soldier friends or your Navy friends.
Yeah.
Just step to one side, take the photograph of the ship, step back. It could be as simple as that, just to gain really low-level intelligence.
Yeah.
It's just so varied, absolutely so varied, and I loved it.
Was that your first experience with photography?
Yes. Yeah. No, not the Navy, but my first experience with photography, I did some work in Northern Ireland, and it was long, it was boring, and previously we'd have said different words that meant somebody would have been shot. I just pressed a shutter on a camera, which meant we had the evidence to convict. And that's part of how the politics changed in Northern Ireland, that I was really privileged to be part of and see that change, to go from, when I joined, to very violent situations, to getting a little bit smoother and softer, to we're now more interested in arresting rather than the shooting of terrorists when things happen. Yeah. And I love the photography. It's a technical skill. Yeah. So you work everything out in your head before you push the shutter.
Yeah.
Your shutter speed, your ISO or ISA as it was back then, your aperture, what's the exposure going to be like, because you couldn't waste the film. Digital cameras now, who cares? I've got a memory card that's, the thumbnail that I can put 3,000 photographs on. Back then it was 24.
Well, times have changed.
Yeah, but it was that geekiness that I loved, having to work that out in the head before you pushed it to make sure that the exposure would be accurate.
I'm interested then, we or you alluded to it earlier, sort of the micro stresses that perhaps added up during your time in the army, and you left after 12 years. Was there any kind of resentfulness when you left, or was it cool, that was good, I'm ready to go, and then you jumped into the next chapter of your life, super pumped and excited?
Lots of little bits that happened towards the end of my military career that I think, looking back, it was resentful. It takes a while to get over some of those. You put your whole life into that, and you expect a little bit more back than perhaps you get back from the military. So that resentment is there. At the end of the day, the military is there to do one thing and one thing only, and that's to look after the interests of the UK. An individual is irrelevant. The team is bigger, etc. So it took me a while to actually get that they did not owe me anything. And I think a lot of soldiers would probably say the same. We loved our time in the military. Leaving could have been a little bit better handled. But I was really excited to go out and start the next chapter in my life as a civvy, as it were. It was working in the telecoms industry on, I think it was like nearly 2/3 the salary, 2/3 plus of the salary, and I got weekends off.
Hey.
I turned up to work with a company called Ericsson's, and I turned up on a May bank holiday, because in the army you didn't do bank holidays, you were just working.
Oh,
so
wow.
I turned up, and the security guard saying, what are you here for? I said, I'm all suited and booted, newly freshly bought suit, that kind of thing, creases in the shirt that would slice somebody's arm off. He said, no, we're closed. I'm like, you can't be closed, you're supposed to be at work. And I showed him the letter, and it was a typo that HR had sent that said you start on May the 1st. I was like, there, May the 1st is a bank holiday. And his face just couldn't comprehend that this young guy, this soldier, and I still look like a soldier, obviously, was like insisting on starting work because I had that letter. Just bugger off and come back tomorrow.
Keen.
That was my introduction. Like, this is a completely different life.
That's it. And you spent a few years doing a number of different roles. So the satellite work, and then the training and consultancy. Could you just sort of talk us through those few years and what that looked like for you?
Joined Ericsson's to do fibre optic communications, various satellite communications, and general telecoms training. Really lucky to be sent over to, where are we, Los Angeles, for a couple of weeks to do training out there. Fabulous. Came back, joined another company called Alcatel, French company, pretty much doing the whole telecoms thing. And then I started moving into the key account management side of things, so looking after large multi-million-pound accounts from a relationship management perspective. And I'd sort of started to get their interest in the softer skills that come with being in the military. So not per se being able to load and shoot a gun in a number of seconds. It's how to communicate with people more efficiently to bring them down when you're talking about negotiations and conflict management. I met my wife during that time, who headed up that particular section of the company. Piqued my interest to do a whole lot more self-development along that area. And I found that knack that I seem to be quite good at it. I put a lot of effort in, but some things do come naturally, but you have to put the effort in. So I fanned my own flames, as it were. I made myself redundant by writing a business case to the chief exec and marching myself into his office and saying, you're paying me too much, get rid of me. Which he did. He just sort of read the business case. He was like, yeah, I'll pick up the phone. He called HR. And I eventually, I think it was 2 weeks later, got a limousine on my last day to drive me out of the office. I'm hanging out at the top of the limousine, waving my arms. That's the extrovert coming out in me.
Yep.
And I started doing consultancy, interim jobs within the telecoms sales field, etc. And it sort of snowballed into running my own company eventually to do leadership management development, which I eventually, I've been all over the world doing that. I spent a Christmas in Kuala Lumpur, which is one of the best Christmases I've ever had. Kuala Lumpur is an Islamic country, but they party for Christmas like nobody's business. There's always this issue that you see, the fake news, Muslims don't like Christmas trees. Well, that's a whole lot of crap. The place was littered with Christmas trees, with Santa Clauses, with angels, with reindeers, with fake snow.
Look at that.
But everybody was just a normal day. It was just that's what the Christians do. So let's do it. We enjoy it.
Oh, why not? So any
And,
excuse for a celebration.
and I think, going back to that spiritual faith religion conversation, that was just, that's just normal. It just is. You get the same sense of feeling if you go into a mosque, a synagogue, a temple, a spiritual glade, perhaps in the forests, the woods, as you do going into a Catholic church or a Christian church. It's just irrelevant. It's just about being nice. Slightly tangent there, sorry. But that started me then thinking about how can I do more and help people? Hence the whole training and development came along with that. Financial crash 2007, 2008 happened. And I'd always kept the interest in photography up. I would just photograph a wedding for a crate of beer, which, don't tell the tax man. So if anybody from HMRC is listening, you didn't hear that. And my wife and I sat down and how can we split the family income? Because otherwise we're in the same industry, chasing the same business that has now been massively reduced. I said, I'll just literally off the back of it, I'll just start a photography business. I've got a credit card to buy the kit. So what? So I, spent 10 grand credit card limit, bought the cameras, did my own website. There's the nerdy stuff coming back again.
Yep.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And I've been pretty much busy ever since. So yeah.
It strikes me that confidence is there, and I think it interests me because I think right now, obviously, yes, with COVID, we're very limited in terms of our movement and our our travel restrictions, but people are feeling stuck, and they were feeling stuck before COVID, and they're going to be feeling stuck after COVID. And you faced a number of difficult situations in your life, the financial crisis. I can imagine that wasn't fun to have to be like, okay, well, what now? And you sort of just get up and get on with it. And do you have any advice, for lack of a better term, for anybody who is feeling stuck right now and wants to venture out and sort of start their own business?
First off, you are allowed to sit at home and cry. Give yourself space to just sit there and think the whole world is against me. And I think that's a really important emotional takeaway. People don't give themselves that time to emotionally adapt to what's happening. It's right, I need to homeschool. Actually, can I just sit back and think about what I need to do to homeschool first?
Yeah.
And yes, I sat at home and it was like, shit, my whole business has just collapsed.
Yeah.
The training and development industry went from I'm traveling all over the world, literally all over the world first class, to I can't even get a gig in Wales for more than £150. And I'm being paid £1,000 a day in Kuala Lumpur, 8 months ago.
Yeah.
It literally just went. So give yourself time to emotionally adapt to that. So that shock, anger, so the SARA cycle, shock, anger, rejection, acceptance. People need time at their own space to go through that. So yes, big shock, that anger. Do they know who I am? I can't believe this is happening. This is not happening. Oh shit, just get on with it. And some people take longer than others. The big thing is you need to have that emotional space. Yeah. And people don't give themselves it. We are afraid as a nation, I think, to cry and let the emotions out. And yes, people see the big rough toughy soldiers, they still cry. Business people still cry. It's irrelevant. Crying is a human response to getting rid of emotion. Once you've done it, you feel like crap. You've got that horrible headache that comes along when you've just poured the tears out. Your head is going nuts because of it. You feel emotionally drained. And that's the time to go outside, look at the fresh air and think, I'm still alive. Yeah. I've still got things I can do. I've still got things that I can offer. Right. What is it I can do? And that's that crux. And it might be something completely different that you can do. But you need that space to and think. We got very deep with this conversation. So, yeah.
I think that's good.
And I spent time doing that. And it was, can I set up a website, run a photography business? Do I want to take the risk of just going out on a credit card and buying this? Can I make that work? I've always had an interesting relationship with money. I spend it several times. I'll spend it when I get the work. I'll spend it when I deliver it, and then I'll spend it again when I've invoiced for it.
I like that, but I'm sure that
Yeah,
has some implications.
Absolutely. So yeah, I've had an interesting relationship with money that has an impact on me. But at the end of the day, I know that I can go out, get a job in Tesco's, stacking shelves if I need to make money. And that's part of the conversation I think that will come along later. I just stuff it. I'm going to do it. I'm good at it. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm a businessman. It's not going to be a hobby. And for 14 years, whatever it was, I've been running my wedding photography as a business. I love my clients to bits emotionally. They do know I love my job, but they also know it's a business.
Yeah.
You know, so there's no soft touches. If you want a discount that's not in the, that's not on the website, it's just tough. You ain't getting it. I don't care whether you tell me you're going to put your stuff on your social media. I don't care whether you're going to leave me a great review. That's the discount you're going to get. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
And I think I was lucky because of that hard work and possibly the self-reliance and the confidence and that resilience to, you've got to design your website, because I couldn't afford somebody to do it for me. So I'll do it myself. And it was crap. But all it needed to do was there's a photo, this is my name, there's a telephone number, get in touch.
That's it. It's those small steps, isn't it? It's like, I think it's so powerful what you're saying about that emotional release. Like, own your situation, don't paint a picture, but in the releasing of the emotion, you create space for then courage to come in, and for direction. And there's something to be said about surrounding ourselves by people who can uplift us and keep us on the right path, who can reflect back to who we are and what our values are, and that's going to steer us in the right direction as well.
And if you're lucky enough to have a partner that can do that, fabulous. That's where you and I both step in to help other people do that excuse me, that potentially don't have a partner that can do that, or they need a little bit more professional help somewhere along the line. That's part of just what I want to give back, and that sort of started me on the path to doing the mentoring with Business Wales. Somebody just came on and said, I think you'd be really good on Facebook. You'd be really good at this. And my business head said, great, what's it pay? And then, nothing. Oh, okay, then. It's like, nothing? You want me to what? Nothing? And it was just like, well, yeah, I can. I've got, for want of a better word, the space. My business is going good. It's pretty much working itself. The processes are all there. I spent a lot of time doing that, and I needed something else to do. And Business Wales came up at the right time in my life to fill a gap that I can help other people tick all of those boxes off. And as I tell my younger coaches, my younger mentees, photographers, I want them to make money because they're going to pay for my care home. So I've still got that business focus going on.
Look at
that. So I want new businesses, younger businesses to succeed. And I'll put a lot of effort into helping them succeed. Because yes, ultimately they will pay my mortgage, but ultimately they will feel better and start to pass their skill set and their help to other people. And that's happening now. I've seen that a lot through the group that I work with, helping each other during COVID. They're not in competition with each other anymore, which potentially they were. We're all in this together. Let's just help everybody.
And it is amazing what is coming out of COVID, and I think there is a lot of scary things, and there we hear all the bad stories of people dobbing each other in or whatever, but the truth is also it's the silent voices, it's the people taking each other's hands and just holding on, and there's something to be said for that as well. I'd like to dive into your wedding photography a little bit, because yes, you're a wedding photographer, but I just think, as with everything, Andrew, you take it to the next level, because yes, it's a business. Yes, you love it, but you really love it. You offer so much to your clients. Can you talk us through your, a standard wedding situation and what you offer there?
I was chatting to a lady yesterday, actually. Hello, Ruth, if you ever listen to the podcast, who stalked me on my Facebook, social media, etc. And I often get my couples, whether same-sex, heterosexual, we've stalked you, we want to get to know you. And she just loved the fact that I'm so open and honest about what I do. And I think that's important from an individual point of view and a business point of view. Typical wedding for me would be, I start at prep time. So when you're putting your shirt and tie on, when you're putting your dresses on, whatever, and I'll go right the way through to the end of the day for the last major event, as I say. I tend to say I don't do time limits. So the last major event is either the first dance or fireworks or sparklers. So in the height of summer, it doesn't get dark till perhaps 10:30. So the fireworks are at 11 o'clock and I will have started at 7 in the morning. I'm still rocking and rolling, loving it at 11 at night. And I'm still, what are you tagging for? Come on, to get the expressions going. And that's the energy that I like to bring. The other stuff that comes along with running that business for me is making sure that my couples don't need to worry about anything, to the extent of having hairspray, hair grips, sanitary products in my camera bag, first aid kit, all of that kind of stuff, because things happen at a wedding and you're not at home. So where do you go for stuff? Well, just have a look in the camera bag. Andrew's probably got it somewhere. Dressed my brides, dressed bridesmaids, looked after kids, because it eases the stress on people so that they can enjoy their day. And I think the best epithet, whatever, I can't remember the word, that I've been given, and it happens a lot, is I'll get guests coming up to me on the end of the evening saying, so how long have you known the couple? You know, why didn't they invite you to sit down for the wedding? You must have known them years. No, they only booked me 2 years ago. But people, you know, I come across, and I want to come across as being the couple's best friend.
Yeah.
But you didn't like me enough to invite me to sit down. And I'm fine with that, because I'm not a photographer, I'm a friend.
Yeah.
And friends will smile in front of the camera much better than they will do with a stranger. That process starts off with insisting on meeting couples face to face. And if that means driving all over the country, or it used to mean driving all over the country, I'd make the effort.
Yeah.
And if I didn't get the booking, you know, drive to Southampton perhaps. Hello, Emma, if you listen. And I didn't get the booking, I didn't get the booking. But that's my effort to put into that relationship. On Zoom, I insist on a Zoom call, regardless. We're going to meet, we're going to talk like this. Because if I don't like you, I don't want to take your money.
Yeah.
Because I don't get a spark in your eye. And my jokes are really crap, you know, so I need the spark, if they're not going to laugh at the jokes. I do pre-wedding shoots. So I meet the couple face to face at least once, probably 2 or 3 times during the process, and we become friends. I get to know I get to know when they're going to have kids before anybody else. In fact, there's been several times over the past 14 years that I've got up at the end of the day to one of my brides and, you know, when's it due? And they're just looking at, how did you know? Well, you're just holding yourself differently. You're not drinking alcohol. You're being very careful. You're holding, you know, there's just non-verbal clues that come in, because I'm with them so much. Other people don't notice that. And I really do enjoy it. It's, I hope that answers the question. I've just rambled.
No, it does. And I think it'll be very interesting for the listeners. And, you know, something that comes across to me, you know, sort of with the age that we're living in, especially for the younger generation, is this sort of make a quick buck, you know, and I don't know, do what you can to get as much as you can, and almost either sell yourself, or, you know, your hobbies and interests are for after work hours, but then there aren't really work hours, you're just working all the time. And it's so nice to hear, first of all, just to speak to you about you do something you're passionate about. Your heart is in it, in a very emotional and a personal investment kind of way, but you do have that business mindset as well. You need to make the money, but you're not there to rip these people off. You're there to build a relationship, and that is something you just don't hear much these days.
That goes into my sense of wanting to help people, so that's my sense. My Google reviews often talk about my exuberant personality. I think one of the best ones I have, Andrew has a presence. You will know he's at your wedding.
That's so
and I
cool.
love that. That sort of goes into, I'm comfortable with what I charge, and it might not be as much as people think, but it pays the bills that I need them to pay. And that's at the end of the day, I can't stuff a coffin with money and put it in the ground, and I'm certainly not going to put it in a crematorium and burn it. So why do I need to charge more than I do when I can't spend it? My idea of going on holiday is going away with my wife for 2 weeks and we camp in a big tent. No offense, but preferably with no children. So we do it outside the summer holidays. My idea for me is go for a walk with a tent and, 3-4 days, just nowhere.
Yeah.
I don't need anything more than that. And that there is, I don't need it. What's the point?
Yeah.
I am comfortable. I've traveled the world. So's Suzanne. So our relationship is built upon, we are just very comfortable with each other. I don't have a young family to support. So I can think, from a money point of view, if you've got a younger family, then yes, you need to think about supporting the family, paying the mortgage, etc. So yes, your prices might be higher. But if you're comfortable with that, why be excessive about it? Because no offense to the tax man, you're just going to pay more tax. And if you don't need to pay the tax, why bother?
Yeah.
That sounded really bad, that.
No, I think the truth is, I think the underlining message here is look at what you need and work to that. Like, it's not society's pressures that you're living to, it's your standards that you want to be able to maintain, and that's it.
Yeah, and I think that word standard is absolutely right. What standard of living are you comfortable with?
Yeah.
And I think Lord Digby Jones, I think, said this, is how much do you need? How much is enough?
Yeah.
And if you can answer that, and that's going back to yourself that we've talked about, how much money is enough for you? What would you do if you won, was it the 174 million pounds last night? What would you do with it? And it's like, well, I have no idea. Well, it's too much then, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's it. Unless you know what you're going to do with it, it's too much.
Gosh,
Suzanne and I
really
from that
like
point of view,
that.
Suzanne and I have already said whatever we win, if we win big, half of it's going to charity instantly because we don't need it, we don't want it.
Yeah.
And 174 million, to be perfectly honest, at our age, 4/5 of it will go to charity because we don't need it. It's not going to change us. We're not going to go jet setting because we don't like it. We don't need to do it.
Yeah.
Somebody, yourself, who's a little bit younger, different aspirations, you may think, actually, I can do something really big with that much money, bring wild globally and use it for the greater good. But we've all got different aspirations when it comes to how much is enough and what do we need.
Yeah.
And that comes from knowing yourself a lot better than people actually do.
Yeah, getting that inner conversation flowing. And one place that we can really cultivate and find comfort in that inner dialogue, inner conversation, is when we're out and about hiking, camping, whatever it looks like. And you are sort of making that into a little bit of a business as well. How's that going?
Nice segue. I like that. And to be honest with you, I was on Facebook yesterday in the group that I run for my coaching, my business coaching. Somebody asked, we went away in August when we were allowed to go out and do a little bit more traveling, and I took a young lady called Fiona. Hello, Fiona. She badgered me. She wanted to go camping. And I'm your man, to be perfectly honest. At the drop of a hat, I'll sleep in a tent or in a hole in the ground somewhere. And I'm going to tell Fiona's story. And she won't mind me saying this. She's quite open about this. She has suffered with some mental health issues. Her mother passed away a couple of years ago. So she's found it very hard. She is a single parent, etc. And she got in touch, right, so I'm going to go away camping. Absolutely. I know just the place. It's about a 1.5 mile walk to get to where we need. There's a nice lake, so we've got fresh water, that kind of thing. You can swim in the lake. And she's on the phone saying, on Facebook saying, so what do I need to put in the trolley? And I said, what trolley? Well, to take it to the campsite. She's thinking gig, and I'm thinking walk. I'm like, I think you're missing the point here, Fiona. This is going in a rucksack, and you're carrying it on your back. And you can and her language is lovely. It's lovely. She swears a lot in a nice way. And he's like, oh, yep. And that typified is like, right, okay, so we meet. She brings the rucksack that she's got. And the first thing I do is start throwing things into my boot that you don't need. And it's a typical new people new to walking and hiking and camping always carry too much. Just in case. Like, you don't need deodorant, Fiona, just get rid of it. That was her luxury. She refused for me to throw the deodorant away. Right, you don't need 5 pairs of knickers, love. We're only going for a night. Just get out. And 5 t-shirts, no, all of that kind of, you just don't need it. I think the American phrase is embrace the stink.
Oh yeah, I like that.
and there's a lake there. I've got soap flakes. You can wash. So we packed the rucksack much lighter. Obviously, Fiona hasn't carried a rucksack of any weight, which is another introduction. So if people are new starting that, you've got to start fairly light. She had her basic stuff in. I carried a lot of hers anyway, like the deodorant. It just makes me laugh. Who are you going to meet?
So good.
A mile and a half, and it's an easy-ish mile and a half. It is uphill. The weather was about 30 degrees last August. Gorgeous weather, so very debilitating. And every 15 minutes, she'd stop, take some photos. I'm effing knackered. And it was like, yep. But if you don't keep going, I'm just going to leave you. And she sort of looked at me thinking, you would as well. Yeah, I would. I'd just walk off. And by the way, I've got your car keys. So she had to follow me. And we got there. She loved it. She was knackered. She loved it. And she's looking around at this lake and she's just going, you can't see it on the podcast, girls, but Fiona's face was just amazing. Her jaw literally dropped looking at the landscape, that openness, that sense of wonderment was, I just want to give you a great big hug. And I couldn't. It was like, right, we're going to set up the tents, that kind of thing. So what we're going to do now, she's really excited and pointed upwards to the mountain that we were going to climb. We're just camping here. And she's like, I'm never climbing up there. It's a 45-degree slope that sort of bends round to a ridgeline overlooking. And she's like, no, I'll never do it. That walk killed me. 2 hours later, we're at the top and then the mouth drops again as she sees the views. And a lot more swearing goes on. But that opened her mind completely to hiking. And she nags me all the time. As soon as lockdown ends, we're going out, we're going out, we're going out. She wants to do more camping. More importantly, it helped her focus on what really is important in life.
Yeah.
And that rat race isn't important. It's the physical health, the mental well-being that comes along with that. Before the current lockdown, we went up into a Welsh mountain called Fan Fawr, which is the one opposite Pen y Fan. And I took her and a friend up the hard way, because I'm a git like that. And there's a video on the YouTube channel that I have that basically I'm telling her to effing get her backside up the hill. Different people need different motivational encouragement. She gets to the top, it's in the snow, and she's taking the socks and shoes off to ground herself in the snow, the cold, the atmosphere that was there. And that's such a massive change from the August to then, that she has grown as an individual, spiritually, as well as physically. She's got much fitter than it was back then. And she started another photography business. You know, that gave her the spark to do that.
Yeah.
And that gave me the idea that business, again, somebody will pay me to go out walking that I enjoy. Oh, bring it on, baby. And the payment side of it is to make sure that I cover my insurance, to make sure that they're insured. So outdoor insurance pays for the coaching and the mentoring, pays for the equipment that I provide them to make sure that they are safe. Excuse me. The cooking sets, that kind of thing, the food, the rations, all of that kind of thing. And it's taken off. So I've enjoyed that. And part of that is also introducing people to the outdoors in a safe, controlled way with somebody who is very comfortable being outdoors, so that after that first session, they've sort of got an idea of what they need to take to do it themselves and be safe.
Yeah.
And I'm paranoid about safety when I walk, because I do a lot of solo walking, very much like yourself, to the extent that I carry enough for at least 24 hours, period. There's been an incident very recently. I think it was the Patterdale Mountain Rescue Team. One of their individuals went out on a call out for 2 lost campers who should not have been out. He slipped and has life-changing injuries. My idea is when I go out, I need to look after myself for at least a minimum of 4 hours for mountain rescue to get to me. That 4 hours is going to be cold, wet and miserable. I will die of hypothermia or blood loss. So that's why I carry as much stuff as I do, just for a normal day walk. That's that self-resilience and self-reliance coming in. And teaching people that's what you need to think about if you're going to go out walking. Not just, I'll put a flask in a rucksack and I'll go up to the wildest part of the Brecon Beacons and get lost, well, you're putting other people's lives at risk, whether it's COVID or not. Being able to self-rescue or self-look after is part of building that mental resilience.
Yeah.
To, I can do this. I have the skill set. Stop, think, don't panic. What do I need to do?
Yeah.
Does that sort of make sense? So all of that encapsulated into setting up that organisation. I don't want to name. I don't want to do the name dropping. So sorry. That the organisation I'm currently sort of the new business that I've set up to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it does, and I think it gives us a great insight into the what and the why. And again, the why is so big and broad and deep, and it's not just because I like it and I want to make money. It's like I genuinely want to help people, and you genuinely are helping people.
When you are Dartmoor, Exmoor, when you're in the wilderness areas of any part of the UK, you can't escape. You have to do that hard thinking. And if that hard thinking means you're going to sit down and you're going to do that crying there rather than on your sofa, that you need that emotional release. You know, myself, you know, me, we are safe people for that to happen with. Yeah. We understand that that's the emotion that's going to go through. And I've had one of my coaches just basically just sit down and cry because you know that whole, it's just completely emptied, and then all of a sudden I just know what I need to do, and I'm just so scared about what I need to, etc. When you're at the top of a Welsh mountain and it's hoofing it down with rain and a 35-mile-an-hour winds, and you're thinking, this really isn't the time to sit down and cry, but you know what? You need it right now. We'll get the kettle on.
Yeah, that's it.
Because that person needs that space right now. You take it into a corporate area and you try and do the coaching there, there's always an excuse. I've got another meeting. I've got an email I need to send, that telephone calls. You have no chance of doing that in the wilderness areas. So it forces you to think, and you get clarity of thought. It's not a pleasant process for some people, but having experienced people such as yourself, such as me, being able to help people through that emotional process, I think is absolutely vital.
Yeah, no, it is. And I can speak, you know, for myself as well, you know, all the trails I've done, all the bad weather I've been in, all the too hot weather I've been in, all the I'm just too tired feelings I've been in, like everything eventually leads to some kind of clarity, some kind of learning, even the mistakes, even the actually owning up to the fact that I've taken on more than I can chew here. Everything about being outside and immersing yourself in nature, if you open your heart and you open your mind, you're gonna come away with something.
Yes. And I think the benefit that we can bring to that is helping somebody through our own experiences, overcome it, and overcome the fear of the unknown. You know, you know, trying to cope with your own emotions is exceedingly hard. If you have somebody who's been through similar emotions, that has their experience, that can help and say, it will get better. This is how I can help you, and this is what I've done. It's a safer environment to do that. It's a safer release.
Yeah, no, it is. So to start to round this up, because I'm just a little bit conscious of your time. I mean, it's been a fantastic conversation. We've covered a lot of ground here, which is everything I'd hoped for.
I had you out till 2:00 this afternoon.
Oh, good. I mean, you just sort of touched on it there, and I'd love it if you could break it down for us a little bit more. But say this is really resonating with somebody, and you know they want to get outside and sort of lockdown aside. You know, they could get in touch with you, but what are some steps that they could take now to start on that mental and physical preparation to get themselves outside?
Physically, it's really easy. Buy a cheap pair of walking boots, and literally, I've got a pair on at the minute that I think cost me 35 quid that I call my pair of slippers. Because when I'm walking around, I really don't want to wear my 200 quid plus boots. And just walk. And if that just means walking from your front door to the end of the road, and that's as far as you can go, either physically or due to whatever mental health reasons you might have, and then turn around and come back, that's doing something. Thinking about starting to do longer walks is just going to the next street, to the next street, to the next street, and then having a look on Google Maps. If you can't read an OS map, Google Maps is your next best friend. Where's your nearest park? Walk to the nearest park. Then if you want to improve your fitness, walk to the nearest park and time it. And the next time you do it, beat it by a minute. Don't set yourself ridiculous times. They have to be achievable. Beat it by another minute. Beat it by another minute. Start carrying a tiny, cheap little rucksack that you can get off Amazon with that flask of tea in it. COVID rules depending on which country that you live in.
Yeah.
Sorry, I need to think about that. I'll just put a couple of tins of baked beans in the rucksack to give it a tiny little bit of weight, and then do the walk again and do the walk again. The mental health aspects of just getting outside and knowing that, well, one, thinking I'm walking to the park and I've got 2 tins of baked beans in a rucksack. If I get stopped by the police, what the hell are they going to think? Is like, wow, yeah, this is a bit strange doing this. The mental health aspects start when you start doing that and realizing that I can walk to the end of the street. I can walk to the next street. I can walk to the park. When we are out of lockdown, I fully expect the open areas to be completely full of, pardon my French, idiots who haven't thought about what they're going to do. And I think that's where your group and the experience that you bring in saying, this is what you should think about going outdoors. Just take a photograph of yourself and post it on social media before the walk.
Yeah.
You know, what are you wearing? Tag the location. So if you don't come back at a sensible time, people know where you are and what you're wearing. Preferably leave a Google Maps route if you can, if you can't do the OS maps. That leads on to that mental health, that resilience that starts to come on of looking after yourself first and foremost. I'm wearing this, I'm going to take this walk. If I'm not back in an hour, can somebody give me a call, tag me, just, because you do get emotionally lost in the outdoors and you forget the time. I forget the time all the time because I'm just wandering aimlessly. Oh God, I need to get back, whatever. With regards to equipment, things like that, it's having an open conversation with people like yourself in the Wild group. I want to start doing this. What do I need versus what do I want? Everybody wants to spend a bloody fortune getting the lightest gear. Well, actually, you don't. You can quite happily go outdoors. Other online stores are available. Cotswold Outdoors. You can go onto Amazon and buy really good stuff. If you're prepared to wait a bit longer, AliExpress will do stuff like that. A rucksack, a pair of boots, a pair of trousers, semi-decent socks. What more do you need? I'm not a fan. He says, I've got a regatta cheap fleece on. I'm not a fan of brand names because you're paying for the brand name more than anything else. Buy the cheap stuff. And when you think that you need the better stuff because you're pushing your boundaries, then invest in the money. Goes back to the conversation about this excellent £35 eBay purchase. That's it's a cold weather jacket that the British Army uses. Yeah. Rather than a £350 Rab fleece or jacket. It does the job I want it to do.
There you go.
Tight Yorkshireman. Does that help?
It does, and I think it. I mean, there's fantastic information about the kit in particular. I think that mental resilience. I think people are anxious to be alone with themselves, and it's, as you said with the physical stuff, it's taking it slowly. It's those small steps. It's working on that mental dialogue. And the times where I find myself feeling anxious, I mean, I'm the first person to put my hands up and say, yep, I struggle with my mental health. I do consciously talk out loud and coach myself through situations. I talk to myself. I say, Abbie, you're doing really well. You're here. You want to be here. Have a look around you. What can you see? What can you take in? And it's game changing,
That was one of the first videos. When I was doing that research, that was one of the first videos I saw of you on some mountain, pardon my French, shit scared, talking to yourself. Yeah. And the fact that you were so open and honest about your emotions and talking yourself through it, it just piqued something in me that says, that I want to support you to do that, because not enough people talk about their mental health issues. Yes, from the military, I had PTSD. I can control it, because I've had a lot of experience within the psychology industry to do that. But you being so open about that and what you do was an absolute eye-opener for me, rather than a lot of the other YouTubers going on and saying, right, buy this stove, do this is how you do it. It's like, can we keep it like really real? Yes, the outdoors is good for you and mental health, but do you want to talk about mental health issues in real time? Not just, I had a bit of a tough day yesterday. actually, I'm having a really tough day now. I have no idea where I am. My pack's too heavy. I'm running out of water, and that mountain's big and huge, and I'm going to have a breakdown.
Yeah,
That
been there, done that.
Yeah, well, exactly. You know, and that was so powerful for me that I that was what got me to support you. You know, and there is, and it's not in competition with each other. I think both sides of what we do support each other, mutual support.
Yeah.
I don't see it as, you know, I'm giving money to the competition. I see it as supporting somebody who's doing it from a slightly different perspective. And I can afford to do that. And I want to do that. Yeah. I enjoy watching that kind of video.
Well, I'm very grateful for that reflection, because that's the thing. It's so exposing. You know, it's one thing to have these conversations and do this journey alone, but then to have to film it as well is always quite nerve-wracking. But it is because, kind of like you, I want to help people, and this is my vessel and my tools in which I utilize in order to do that, to communicate a message and help people take some time to sort of self-reflect as well.
Yeah. And you're spot on. I when I take people out, they will have the same emotions as you, but I don't have their permission to, like, oh, look, this is what X, Y, and Z's doing. You've just gone out there, and honestly, it just blew my mind. The openness and honesty, I loved it. And that's not, you know, bigging you up for anything. It's just that's piqued that interest in. That is something that needs supporting, regardless of whatever else I may do. That needs supporting, that openness and honesty, that we need to talk about mental health issues more. We shouldn't be afraid of it. People have them. And the more we talk about sitting on the sofa and crying, or sitting on a mountainside and crying because it's too much, the more comfortable people will feel in doing it.
Yeah.
Which means that we can then move on and get better.
Yeah. Face the hard stuff, hey?
Yeah, and sometimes you do it alone, and sometimes you're with a friend.
That's it. Yeah. Oh, I think that's a really good place to end this conversation. Actually, you know, we all have our stuff. Nature is an amazing place to face it, and then it's sort of looking forwards from there and taking your hand, getting that mental dialogue, getting prepared physically, and finding the courage to step out and knowing it is possible. Yeah. So with this One Wildlife podcast, I like to wrap up the conversations that we have with some quick fire questions. So I've got 10 questions here for you, and hopefully, hopefully you have some quick answers. Are you ready to kick this off?
Crack on.
All right. First question: what was the last book you read and loved?
It was Where Eagles Dare by McLean.
Okay.
It's a film. I love it.
Cool. I'll have to look that one up, actually. Why did you like that?
I love the film. I love his writing. It is so in depth. It's an action story. And I like reading action books. Yeah. They're really easy to read. You don't need to put too much thought process into following it.
I think I'll definitely be checking that one out. All right. Second question. Are you a morning or an evening person?
Or morning. I love the dawn.
Yeah.
I'm out walking the dogs during the dawn. I love that inner sense of solitude, that nobody else is around, everybody else is in. I love being out in the dark anyway, and I love sunrises and sunsets.
Oh, yeah, amazing.
That sense of that happens every single day, and it has done for tens of thousands, if not millions of years, kind of approach.
That's so good. Okay, this one is exceptionally deep. If you could be reincarnated as an ice cream flavor, what flavor would you be?
Mint chocolate chip.
Mint chocolate chip?
Yep.
Is that your favorite to eat?
Yep.
That is why.
Yep. As much as I can possibly get in a cone, 2 cones in 2 hands.
That is how you win at life. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
Soldier.
Yeah, and we've sort of talked about that. So awesome stuff. Question 5, halfway. What is your most unusual talent?
Good grief, my most unusual talent.
On the spot.
Gordon Bennett. For the viewers that can't see me, my head is got my body language is like, where the hell did that come from? My most unusual talent, I suppose, it's being able to read body language superbly.
Yeah.
I pick up on lots of non-verbal cues really, really easily. I know when people are not themselves by reading their body language, the minute micro expressions, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's so much more to us than just our voices, hey?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Who has inspired you the most in your life?
My grandfather.
Yeah, he sounds like an amazing guy.
I basically just say yes, and that changed my life within the military. And anytime somebody wants something, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. I think it's a very good takeaway and a good practice to follow your heart and say yes. Okay, when you're 80 years old, what will matter to you most?
The memories that I've gathered.
Awesome. What's your favorite food?
Oh, Jaffa cakes.
Oh, yeah, man. God, I haven't had Jaffa cakes in years.
Great. You so need to look at my photography website.
I think I do.
It is littered with Jaffa cake references.
that brings me so much joy. What's your favorite outdoor space?
The Brecon Beacons.
What is it you love about the Brecons?
The place that I like to go is away from the main tourist areas, so there is nobody there. It literally is the wilderness areas. And it might mean a sort of a 20-minute detour on the smaller roads there to get there. But once you're there, you can walk 20 miles and not see anybody. And that sense of solitude, I love it. Yeah. Absolutely love it.
Awesome. Okay, the final question, and I mean, possibly answered this already, but you might have something different to add. Do you have any catchphrases or mantras that you live your life by?
Well, when somebody says, "Can I ask a question?" my general response is 42. Don't forget where your towel is. 5 pounds of beer and a packet of peanuts.
Okay.
For those who get that reference, it's from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is the answer to life, the universe, and everything, and how to travel intergalactically. That rolls out all the time. Any mantras? Don't be afraid to cry. Is it? And I say that a lot to the people that I do coach and I do take out walking, etc. Don't be afraid to let the emotions exhibit themselves. Yeah. We are too hung up as a nation and possibly as a species on letting those emotions out because we look weak. You don't. Yeah. You are incredibly strong if you can cry, and especially cry in front of other people and show that vulnerability that you've got. And to me, it's a fantastic sense of honor that somebody trusts me enough that they feel that they can do that with me. They feel comfortable with that emotion doing it. So that would be on the serious level.
Well, that sounds good. And Andrew, just to finish up our conversation, do you have any final thoughts or anything else you'd like to share with the listeners today?
Don't be afraid to connect with people who, like yourself, like me, who will quite happily offer the advice and help, for free. I think one of the listeners is probably a gent called Roger, who is in the group. He got in touch on Facebook. We've had conversations about what to buy, that kind of thing. And I just want to give my time to help people to do that. Don't be afraid to reach out and get in touch, whether it's with me, with you, with anybody else. If you think they have a little bit more experience, just drop them a Facebook message or an email. Do you mind if I just pick your brains? People need to share more like that.
Yeah, and if anybody would like to get in touch with Andrew or myself, all the links will be in the show notes below. So please do have a look, take some time looking over the websites, and of course, don't hesitate to get in touch. But Andrew, it has been so good to chat about all of the things we've covered today, and I think hopefully the listeners will be left feeling very inspired and ready to get up and out and have an adventure. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing everything you've shared, and I look forward to chatting again soon.
Thank you very much. See you online.
That's it. Take care.
Bye.
Wow. Andrew drops so many little nuggets of wisdom there, from why it's important to cultivate a sense of self and stay true to our identity, to the significance of engaging and empowering others and saying yes more. If you'd like to find out more about Andrew's work, then head to the show notes to get details of his management consultancy, wedding photography, and outdoor businesses. What a great way to round up the first season of the One Wildlife podcast. It has been a whirlwind of a season, and I'm certainly not the person I was when all this started. Slowly, I'm gaining more confidence, and my brain is buzzing with ideas. For now though, we're going to take a short break to prepare for uploading season 2, launching the first episode on Monday, the 3rd of May. Funnily enough, Andrew will be back on the podcast, diving into a conversation designed to help small businesses get up and running and bounce back from COVID-19. And just to finish on a more personal note, I'd like to say thank you so much for being here. Just by showing up and listening to the podcasts, you are helping us to change lives. If you know someone who might enjoy this conversation or any of the other episodes, please don't hesitate to share with them. And of course, before you go, leave us a review wherever you are listening. Keep checking in on our YouTube channel for weekly videos and our socials for inspirational updates. We'll see you in May. Until then, take care, and of course, stay wild.